Welcome to another GearTester tabletop review. Today I'm going to be looking at the Ontario Knife Company's RTAK II. And you can see it right here. It is a large fixed blade knife. It is beefy. It is a chopper. If you are a chopaholic, if you are an individual who just wants to go out and chop down trees and branches and things, if you'd rather use an axe or a machete or a large fixed blade like this than your chainsaw, this is definitely a knife that you want to have in your collection. The RTAK II has a 1095 carbon steel blade, which means it holds a really nice edge. It's easy to sharpen back into an edge, even if you're just using something like your Leatherman file with this kind of fine grit there. It's very easy to keep the edge honed, but it does also keep, that 1095 steel does keep a very nice edge on it. It has a 10-inch blade, 10-inch cutting blade. It is 16.5 inches overall from tip to the back of the handle here. The blade is about 3/16 of an inch thick, so it is a beefy blade. It's not super thick. Cold Steel and a number of companies make knives that are certainly thicker than the RTAK II, but I like it. I like it's the thinness of the blade. It's still plenty strong to baton through things, but it doesn't give you a knife that's just really heavy. And I really think about 3/16 is about as thick as you need to make a knife. If you're trying to baton this through wood, it will do an excellent job. It's got a really thick tang down here. It is a full tang construction, which means that the blade spine runs all the way through. You can see it on both sides here, so you're probably not going to be able to break this blade. There are certainly people who have done that. If you're trying to baton this through some hardwood and you're batoning this through a piece of hardwood that's this big, and you're twinking around on the back here and bending it and just smashing as hard as you can, you probably could break this blade. That's why you use things like a splitting maul or a large axe to do things like splitting big, huge chunks of wood. But, you know, anything around this size to there, I think it's going to split it perfectly fine. I would avoid large pieces of wood that have knots in them, but that's just me. I'm just wanting to take care of my equipment and make sure that I don't overuse it. But it is very thick here where it attaches to the handle. And I like the full tang construction that this handle goes all the way through. It is a very strong blade. When you pick this thing up, you feel like you're holding a small sword. And at that 10-inch blade, you kind of are holding a small sword. The blade is powder coated. It is kind of rough in these areas. This knife has been used for a number of years. It actually is not mine. I had one like it and sold mine to acquire other gear, but this is a friend of mine's, and you can see where he's done a lot of chopping here. It's actually smoothed this kind of powder coat down some. It's rougher here. I would have preferred that it hadn't been rough to begin with, just because you kind of have to wear that off and make it smooth. It would have been better to coat the blade in a way that made the coating smooth to begin with, because I just think it creates more friction as you chop large branches and things. You can see that it has worn off some there, but this blade has chopped a lot of stuff, so that doesn't really bother me. You're just going to have to keep a little oil on this blade to make sure that it does not rust, but that's kind of the double-edged reality of having carbon steel. The RTAK II does come partially serrated. I personally don't see the point of serrations on a knife this big. This is going to be a knife that's used for chopping and cutting. I really consider a knife over about 7 inches, a blade over about 7 inches, as being a large fixed blade knife, so this is definitely at 10 inches, a large fixed blade knife. The Ontario Knife Company RTAK II weighs a whopping 30 ounces, and that can be good weight or that can be bad weight depending on what you're wanting to do with this knife. I think it certainly could be used for backpacking, car camping, hiking. So if you're willing to take the 30 ounces, I say go for it. There are large fixed blade knives like this on the market that don't weigh that much, but this one runs about $120. It's definitely a good buy. You get a lot of quality for your money. The handle here, some of you may have been looking at this, is actually micarta, which is kind of fabric that has been compressed almost into like a plywood or a particle board. And it gives you a lot of good purchase. You can choke up here and do fine work with this knife. You can come down here and get a nice grip, or you can even, if you want to really chop something, kind of get down here and hold it. So this handle has a lot of nice options. I think that a lot of this 30 ounces this knife weighs comes from this handle. It is very handle heavy. And some people on forums and things, and people that I've talked to, seem to think that that's a good thing in a knife, because if you need to use it in a fight or something like that, it's more balanced like a sword. With a knife this size, I think that it is better to have the weight more towards the blade, because you're going to be hacking with it, and because it's light enough. It's not a sword. You don't have 3 feet of blade coming off here, and you're not trying to defend yourself and repost and parry and things with this sword. What am I saying? This large knife. When you have a sword that's really, really long, I understand why you would want it balanced more towards the handle, kind of so that it would flow nicely in your hand. This knife is going to be used for chopping. Even if it's used in a defensive purpose, it's going to be used to strike out, not usually block things. I don't think that you're probably going to find yourself in a sword fight anytime soon. If you have this knife on you and you need to use it defensively, you're probably going to be the only person with a knife this big, so you're going to have the advantage. I like that weight forward for the same reason that butcher knives, large butcher knives, have weight forward so that you can chop and cut through. And this blade is kind of off balance for that. And I think the reason is that these micarta scales on this knife are very thick and very heavy. That gives you a nice grip. Honestly, it could be a little bit smaller for my hand, but if you've got large hands, it gives you a really nice purchase and a really nice grip on this knife. There is no jimping. I don't miss jimping just because it's a big blade. You're going to be hacking mainly with it, and you can choke up really well right here and really lock your hand in without any kind of jimping. Let's talk about the sheath that it comes with. It comes with this sheath. So a large sheath, of course, for a large blade. It does have a plastic or kydex insert that protects the sheath. It snaps down nicely. There is some rattle and movement that kind of bothers me. I prefer that there wasn't. You get this little pouch here that would allow you to have things like a sharpening stone in it, right? Slide that back down in there. Lock this off. Okay. You could also put things like a Leatherman in that pouch if you wanted to, kind of giving you a small knife with a saw and multiple smaller blades for doing small tasks, and then you have the big chopper for larger tasks. The sheath is MOLLE back, so you'd be able to attach it to MOLLE gear. I can't imagine a situation where you would have enough MOLLE, except maybe across the back panel, to actually mount this thing fully. I think it would have been better for them to take the money and invest it in a sheath that was a little bit better designed, maybe had some retention up here that actually held it from rattling. I think the MOLLE is cool, but probably unneeded. Overall, in the sheath, it does gain some length, right? The knife itself is 16.5 inches overall. With the sheath, it's about 20 inches long from the end of the sheath here, okay, to the end of the sheath there, which means you've got a 20-inch thing swinging from your belt. One of the ways that I would modify this knife sheath just straight away is tie this down like this and run my belt through there. I like a higher center of gravity, keeping my blades centered around my waist a little bit better. It also gets this knife up further so it's not in the brush and plant debris as you hike or walk around. I think it creates a better center of gravity. I would just run a cord through here and tie this across like that, and I would run my belt right in like that. I think the Achilles tendon, if this knife has one, is first of all the kind of weight. If I'm going to get a knife this big, I would like it to be more blade heavy and less handle heavy. If this knife has any problems, that would be one of them. Another problem that I see is this sheath. It's not super high quality, but you're getting this amazing blade, 10-inch blade from a very company that produces really quality knives. I like Ontario Knife Company. You're getting the chop factor that this blade has, the cool factor that comes with having a blade that's this large, and the sheath could be a little more customized, and I would prefer honestly a kydex sheath, but that's just me. But of course, then the cost of this knife is going to go up dramatically. You can have custom kydex sheaths made for the RTAK II. I think it's a really nice knife. I would definitely recommend it to you if you're looking for a large fixed blade knife, understanding that it's somewhat handle heavy and that the sheath is not super high quality, but it is a really nice blade. This has been another GearTester tabletop review. You can subscribe above, you can comment below. As always, I appreciate your views and your subscriptions. This is the GearTester signing off.